On the night of September 3rd, 2022, at around 10:15 p.m., a delivery driver named Marcus Chun was making his final run down Route 47 in rural Oregon. He was heading back to the depot after a long shift when, completely out of nowhere, he spotted something that made his blood run cold. Standing motionless on the shoulder of the road was a woman in a white dress, facing away from the highway. But here's what made it truly disturbing. She was standing less than 3 feet from the edge of a steep ravine that dropped nearly 200 feet into darkness below. Marcus was driving at around 55 miles per hour, but the moment he saw her, he slammed on his brakes. The tires screeched against the asphalt as his truck came to a stop about 50 yards past her position. His heart was pounding. Was she trying to jump? Was this a suicide attempt? Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his phone, turned on his hazard lights, and stepped out into the cold night air. He called out to her, his voice echoing across the empty road. But the woman didn't respond. She didn't even turn around. As Marcus carefully approached, keeping a safe distance so he wouldn't startle her, he noticed something deeply unsettling about the way she stood. Her posture was rigid, almost mechanical, and her arms hung limply at her sides. When he got within about 20 feet, he called out again, louder this time. Still nothing. Then, just as he was about to dial 911, the woman slowly turned her head. What Marcus saw in that moment has haunted him ever since. Her face was completely blank, no expression whatsoever, and her eyes seemed to look right through him as if he wasn't even there. Marcus immediately called emergency services and explained the situation. The dispatcher assured him that police and mental health crisis teams were on their way. Marcus stayed with his truck, keeping his headlights pointed at the woman so she wouldn't disappear into the darkness. But after nearly 15 minutes of waiting, something impossible happened. In the brief moment Marcus glanced down at his phone to check the ETA of the responders, the woman vanished. He looked up, and she was simply gone. The ravine was too steep to climb down quickly, and there was nowhere else to go. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, they searched the entire area for over 2 hours. They brought K-9 units, searchlights, and even called in a helicopter with thermal imaging. But despite their extensive search, they found absolutely no trace of the woman. No footprints leading away from the spot. No disturbances in the vegetation. Nothing. The official report stated that no individual matching the description could be located in the vicinity. To this day, Marcus can't explain what he saw that night. Was it a ghost? A hallucination from exhaustion? Or was there a perfectly rational explanation that simply eluded everyone involved? The case remains an unsolved mystery. On July 14th, 2023, college student Emma Rodriguez and her 2 friends were driving back to their apartment in Austin, Texas, after a late-night study session at around 1:45 a.m. They were taking a shortcut through an industrial area when suddenly their headlights illuminated something that made all 3 of them scream. A man was crawling across the road on all 4s, but not like someone who was injured. His movements were erratic and inhuman, his limbs bending at strange angles as he scuttled across the asphalt like some kind of creature. Emma, who was driving, instinctively slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a complete stop about 30 feet away from the crawling figure. In the glare of the headlights, they could see him more clearly now. He was wearing torn clothing, and his head was tilted at an unnatural angle, staring directly at their vehicle. But it was his eyes that terrified them most. They reflected the light like an animal's eyes, glowing with an eerie yellowish tint. For a moment, Nobody in the car said a word. They just sat there, frozen in absolute terror. Then, without warning, the man started crawling toward them. Not quickly, but deliberately, his twisted movements never breaking rhythm. Emma's friend in the passenger seat screamed, "Go! Go! Just go!" But Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. She managed to shift into reverse and started backing up, but the crawling man began to pick up speed. He was chasing them. Emma made a split-second decision. She spun the wheel, executed a hasty three-point turn, and floored the accelerator in the opposite direction. As they sped away, all three of them looked back to the rear window. The man had stopped in the middle of the road and was now standing upright, watching them disappear into the distance. They drove straight to the nearest police station and filed a report. The officers who took their statement seemed concerned but not entirely surprised. As it turned out, there had been several similar reports in that industrial area over the past 3 weeks. Other drivers had reported seeing the same crawling man, always between midnight and 3 a.m., always in the same general location. Some witnesses described him as mentally disturbed. Others claimed he seemed to be under the influence of drugs, specifically a substance known to cause violent and unpredictable behavior. The police increased patrols in the area and even set up a task force to locate the individual. But despite their efforts, they never found him. The reports suddenly stopped after mid-August, and the crawling man was never seen again. Some locals speculated that he had overdosed and died somewhere in the abandoned warehouses nearby. Others believe he was never real to begin with, just a shared hallucination or an urban legend that took on a life of its own. Emma and her friends know what they saw, though, and none of them have taken that shortcut ever since. On the night of November 8th, 2021, truck driver Daniel Murphy was hauling cargo down Interstate 80 in Nevada at around 3:30 a.m. The highway was completely deserted, which was normal for that time of night. Daniel had been driving this route for 15 years and knew every mile marker by heart. He was listening to a podcast, trying to stay alert during the loneliest stretch of the drive, when something in his peripheral vision caught his attention. About 200 yards ahead, illuminated by his truck's powerful headlights, there was a car parked sideways across both lanes, completely blocking the road. Daniel's first thought was that there had been an accident. He immediately began to slow down, his truck's air brakes hissing as he reduced speed. But as he got closer, something didn't feel right. The car's engine was running. Its headlights were on, and there was no visible damage to the vehicle. Then, as Daniel brought his truck to a complete stop about 50 feet away, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out and started walking toward the truck. He was wearing dark clothing and had his hands in his pockets. Daniel's instincts screamed at him that this was wrong. He'd heard stories about highway robberies, about criminals who would block the road and ambush unsuspecting truckers, especially those hauling valuable cargo. Daniel grabbed his CB radio and tried to call for help, but the channel was silent. No response. He was completely alone out there. The man was now standing directly in front of the truck, still about 30 feet away, just staring up at the cab. Daniel could see his face in the headlights now. The man was smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was cold, calculating, almost predatory. Then Daniel noticed movement in his side mirror. Another person had emerged from the darkness on the passenger side of the truck and was approaching the cab. Daniel's heart rate spiked. This was definitely an ambush. He had two choices: stay in the truck and hope they couldn't get inside, or make a run for it. But Daniel was an experienced trucker, and he knew there was a third option. He revved the engine, and the massive diesel motor roared to life. The sound alone was enough to make the man in front of the truck take a step back. Then, Daniel put the truck in gear and started moving forward, slowly at first, giving the man every opportunity to move his car out of the way. The man didn't move. He just stood there, still smiling, as if he didn't believe Daniel would actually do it. But Daniel kept going, picking up speed gradually. At the last possible second, when the truck was less than 10 feet away, the man finally broke. He ran back to his car, jumped inside, and screeched out of the way just as Daniel's truck barreled past. Daniel didn't stop. He kept his foot on the accelerator and didn't slow down until he reached the next truck stop 40 miles down the road. When he finally stopped and checked his truck, his hands were still shaking. He called the Nevada Highway Patrol and reported the incident, giving them the exact mile marker and a description of the car and the two men. The police told him they'd send units to investigate, but they also warned him that this wasn't the first report they'd received. Over the past 6 months, there had been at least a dozen similar incidents along that stretch of Interstate 80. Some truckers had stopped and been robbed at gunpoint. Others had been assaulted. One driver had even been hospitalized with serious injuries. The police increased patrols and eventually arrested 2 suspects matching Daniel's description during a routine traffic stop several weeks later. Both men had prior convictions for armed robbery and assault. They were charged with multiple counts of attempted robbery and criminal conspiracy. But what still haunts Daniel to this day isn't the danger he was in or how close he came to being another victim. It's that smile, that cold, calculating smile on the man's face, as if he knew that no matter what Daniel did, he had already won. Daniel still drives that route, but he never drives it alone anymore, and he always keeps the CB radio on, just in case.